An analysis of Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants. Ernest Hemingway was born in 1899 in Illinois. He grew up in a wealthy family. His father was a doctor who taught him to hunt and fish, which he spent a lot of time doing during his youth. After high school, he got a job as a journalist at a local newspaper. When World War I started, he tried to sign up for the Army but was rejected due to bad vision. So he signed up as an ambulance driver or medic with the Red Cross. After only a few weeks in Italy, he was wounded while distributing chocolates and cigarettes to the soldiers. The story is told that he carried wounded soldiers to safety, but the truth of that story is debated. He spent months recovering in an Italian hospital and fell in love with a nurse there. Later, back in the United States, he got married to a woman named Hadley, and they moved to Paris. They spent most of the 1920s in Paris, and during these years, Hemingway wrote some of his most famous novels and short stories. These included the novels A Farewell to Arm and The Sun Also Rises. His novels were known for dealing with the lost generation, the generation in their 20s during the 1920s, many of whom had either served in World War I or, as with many of his characters, did not serve for one reason or another, and thus were made somewhat invisible by the history of the time. In 1928, he and Hadley moved to Key West. That same year, Hemingway's father killed himself. His mother gave him the pistol as a souvenir. His dad had been suffering from both physical and mental illnesses. Over the years, Hemingway spent much of his time in Key West, writing, hunting, and fishing. He had numerous love affairs and was married 5 times. He covered World War II as a journalist. He enhanced his reputation as a womanizer and as a man's man through his stories about hunting and fishing and womanizing. Towards the end of his life, he survived 2 plane crashes, but they took a severe physical toll on him. In his last years, he moved to Idaho, but suffered from severe depression. He was given electroshock therapy for this, but that didn't help, and it also made for memory loss. As a writer who'd based so much of his work on his own memories and experiences, this was debilitating. In 1961, he killed himself with a shotgun. Hemingway is definitely classified as a realist writer. He writes about what is concrete, real, and observable, not abstractions. The white elephant can be seen as a symbol, so before discussing it within the story, we need to talk about its broader symbolism. The legend of the white elephant began in Southeast Asia, the home of the actual white elephant. Metaphysics teaches that any animal represented by the color white is supposedly linked to mystical legends, giving it greater power. In many forms of symbolism, white is seen as representing purity. In the story of the Buddha, the white elephant is connected to fertility and knowledge. On the eve of giving birth to the Lord Buddha, his mother dreams that a white elephant comes to present her with a lotus, the symbol of purity and knowledge. In legend, the royal white elephant brought sacred power. It brought fertility. For the kings of Burma and Siam, the possession of these sacred beasts became very important. A king who had many fine white elephants would be successful. His kingdom would prosper and his reign would be long. If his white elephants died, it foretold disaster for the king and his kingdom. In practical terms, receiving an elephant as a gift is problematic because it eats too much. There's a Simpson episode on this. Thus, the term white elephant has been used in modern times to describe an unwanted gift. While it's never directly stated in the story itself, the man and his girlfriend, whose name is Jig, are discussing her unexpected pregnancy. The awkward conversation revolves around whether she should abort the pregnancy or give birth. The awkwardness of this conversation and avoidance of using these specific terms are marks of a realist depiction of an intimate conversation occurring in public. As a realist, Hemingway tried to imitate the natural rhythms of speech, which are sometimes cut off or misunderstood. Discussing the potential abortion of an unwanted pregnancy is a taboo topic, but realist writers were generally unafraid to tackle such topics. The term white elephant in the story's title is clearly being used as a symbol. It can actually serve dual symbolic purposes. A white elephant here can be seen as a symbol of fertility. After all, Jig is pregnant. It can also be seen as a symbol of an unwanted gift, as this clearly is not a planned pregnancy. This story would be simpler if it solely involved a man who didn't want his girlfriend to give birth. However, Jig also shows conflicting feelings on this. Note that she is drinking anise del toro, which is outlawed in some countries because it is so strong it can kill. Absinthe is also mentioned. It is a liquor, but it can also be used as a poison. Like many other writers of the 20th century, this story focuses less on the importance of plot and more on the key themes and representations revealed through the characters' dialogue. This story is typical of one aspect of the Lost Generation, writers dealing with modern topics that were unpleasant and usually not publicly discussed. Another example of this can be seen in Hemingway's novel The Sun Also Rises. In that story, he discusses the sexual dysfunction of his main character due to a war wound. This is also not a topic of normal public discussion, and we know that it was at least partly autobiographical. But the Lost Generation writers felt that these experiences needed to be reflected in literature.